Clap my ass
right.
like a drum.
There we go.
How
All right.
dare you do that?
Man, we had to
Okay.
get it out of the way. All right.
We forgot a lot of things in
would
the last episode, but that was the biggest one.
Well, honestly,
I
I have no defense for
Okay,
us.
so here's the thing, right? The best thing about that is that we had planned on doing a recap where we're like, here's how we're going to do it, here's what's going to happen roundabout, and we generally okayed the rough script for the pre-recorded intro that unfortunately did bulldoze a lot of our usual build-up,
I mean, yeah, but
and it really just makes it look, in hindsight, it really does look like we just forgot everything about the
and just
beginning of the episode.
threw that onto
Yeah.
the start just to like
No,
make up
that-
for it. Which, let's face
that
it,
was
is way
planned.
funnier. It's way
is
funnier
funnier,
if
but
it
we
wasn't
did plan
planned,
it.
but we did.
I just
you
like
know what?
the idea that you all are hopeless without me.
That would
That
be
is-
funny.
That is also true.
It's
Which
not
was-
just
which
an
is why-
idea. That's definitely just the truth.
Which is why what makes what happened next even funnier. 3 of the 4 hosts were tagged by a listener on Twitter to weigh in on our favorite horror movies of the 2020s. And
Don't say a listener. We got like 5 listeners. Shout out to Sean.
Hi, Sean.
For 3
Fuck you,
tags.
Sean.
I'm still cool
Yeah.
with you, Sean.
Sean forgot Emma. But I want to, beyond forgetting Emma, we all kind of threw our opinions out there on our 3 favorite horror movies of the 2020s so far.
I was drunk off my ass when I tried to do that, so let me go back and see what they even were.
Yeah,
'cause
let's
I wanna,
recap that real quick. But
maybe they're better.
I do want to give Sean another shout out for then going and watching at least 2 of the movies that we all kind of overlapped because we're all very we have a lot of similar opinions.
I feel like I was the
Um,
most diverse one,
Deviant, yeah.
the most deviant.
Yeah, and Sean went and watched a couple of them and gave his opinion to us. So thank you for
All right.
doing that. That was fun to.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking us seriously on our silly little podcast.
So the post was, you get to keep 3 of these 2020 horror films. Which one are they? And we open up with, or not open up, shut up, just, oh my God. We got
It's
The
a list.
Invisible Man. We've got Antebellum. We've got Freaky. We've got Wrong Turn. We've got The Conjuring. The Devil Made Me Do It.
Ugh.
We've got Night House. We've got Candyman. We've got Malignant. We've got Halloween Kills. We've got Last Night in Soho. We've got the new Scream. We've got Fresh. We've got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the new one. We've got X. And we have Black Phone.
Nice.
Yeah.
And the prompt is you get to keep 3 of these 2020s horror films. Which 3 are you
Mhm.
keeping? And
we
so
all did answer.
everybody got tagged except me because I'm not important, I guess. And we all had opinions. So
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
why don't you all share your opinions?
So I had said that I was going to go with Invisible Man, Black Phone, and X.
Mm-hmm,
With the caveat that that's a lot of recency bias and I was really drunk.
yeah.
Sure.
So
I think
Yeah,
now
has
that you've
changed at all?
thought about it for a number of days,
I gotta
what are you
be honest,
thinking now?
I don't know how much I'm going to change because X was the best Texas Chainsaw movie released in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And The Invisible Man, if y'all haven't seen The Invisible Man yet, it is
Haven't.
very worth checking out. It's a very fun movie, even just in the way that they use the cinematography to make you aware of the fact that there is an invisible person in the shot that, obviously you can't see.
Mhm.
It was really neat.
Yeah.
And I really legally cannot disclose how I feel about the Black Phone at this time.
Of course.
For
Yeah.
me, I'm gonna piggyback off of you because there were 5 movies that I wanted to keep, or that were kind of in my contention. Although there are other movies in this list that I really like, but my 5 were Invisible Man, Freaky, Fresh, X, and Black Phone. But I went Fresh over The Invisible Man because I feel
Mhm.
like both are about women's trauma in a way.
Hmm.
The Invisible Man is kind of about victims of gaslighting and all of that stuff.
Emma, why would you think that that's what it's about?
Nice,
but
good job.
I just feel like Fresh does women's trauma so fucking well, and I feel like
Yeah.
it is a absolute gem of that subgenre of horror. So I wanted to keep that. Freaky I wanted to keep just because it's so fucking fun, and I love it a lot because I love body swap stuff, obviously, since I'm trans. But
Right, of course.
I couldn't
Legal
justify
requirement.
it. Yeah, I couldn't justify my my guilty pleasure pick over X, which is another fantastic genre film that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like has definitely made a mark on that subgenre. And
Yeah.
Black Phone, which we're about to get into, so I won't say too much, but I just feel like it was just such a well-crafted movie.
Hmm.
And we'll talk about it more. But yeah.
Yeah. I agree with those reasons for all of those. I have two separate women's trauma movies, but only one of them has been mentioned so far. I have Fresh, as did a few of us so far. All of us. Did you not have
literally
Fresh?
not me?
I thought you had Fresh. Oh, you had Invisible Man. Sorry, I got it mixed up.
Nina's
I had
out here
Fresh.
trying to correct history right now.
I'm an idiot. I had Fresh. Obviously, loved Fresh. Nothing to say that hasn't already been said. And then I have Last Night in Soho, which is a departure. I really like Edgar Wright, and I really like Anya Taylor-Joy, and I really enjoyed the twist and the way that the twist was treated.
Mhm.
I won't
What
say
about how the
anything-
tryst was treated?
Yeah, thanks, babe. I won't say anything to spoil it, obviously, but when the twist happened, I got a little worried, but from that moment out, it was handled so well that I was super impressed. I really want to watch it again. It's up there for me.
I really love Last Night in Soho, but I had never considered it like a horror movie or thought about
Oh.
it being a horror movie until I saw it on this list, and I was like, wait, is it considered a horror movie?
It's kind
Because
of
I took it much more as kind of like a mystery, like thriller sort of deal.
okay.
It
I got the
definitely
impression
the
it's
way
kind
that
of like
the-
Giallo, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah. The lighting and stuff. Have you seen it, Jeff?
I am the only one here who hasn't seen it, I think.
I
It's
know
on
I haven't
HBO
seen
Max.
Oh, I thought
can't
he saw
believe
it the
I'm
same
being
time you
erased
did.
again.
Okay. It
it.
is.
You guys, you guys should totally see it.
Well, yeah, shout out to Sean again. He was saying in the Discord that it's on HBO Max now, so I will probably be
Yes.
watching it kind of soon.
Shout out
You
to Emma
should.
right now for saying it.
Oh, I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
not paying attention, apparently.
Definitely give it a shot. The way that it uses music and the way that it uses like color, and it has some really fun shots. And the thing that makes it horror is I think there are some more gory elements, and there are some like ghost adjacents. The main character can kind of see ghosts, so that kind of I think plants it in that genre in a way.
Yeah.
That does
Spoiler
change
alert.
things.
So-
a little.
I didn't know there
It's
were
like the
ghosts in
first
this
thing
movie.
that happens. Anyway, and then the last one that I kept was obviously Malignant, because if that movie gets erased from history, my tattoo makes no sense. And also,
Dang
I
it.
love it. Shamelessly, I love it. I
God.
did
Nina's
say
out here
that
being a simp.
I did also add. I'm not a simp. I kin Gabriel May. It's completely different.
Yeah, that's simp in old Tumblr.
Shut up. But yeah, I did say I would hate to see Black Phone go, but I literally don't know which of these three movies I would trade for Black Phone. So,
Right.
but it
Malignant.
is like
There you go.
a
I'll let you,
close-
I told you.
No.
Thank you, Emma.
It is a close one though. It is like threatening to slide in there. So yeah.
And mine
So Jeff,
was,
what do you think?
I picked Malignant X and Black Phone largely because
Wait, you
I
picked
have
Malignant
not-
too?
I did because I have not
Oh my
seen
God.
Last Night in Soho yet, and I've only seen like 7 out of 12 on this list.
You've seen
I
that
would-
many?
So
Well, and most of the ones you
Right.
have seen are not to be rude to them, not super great.
well, yeah,
Like,
between
you
Texas
saw the new
Chainsaw
Texas
Massacre and like
Chainsaw.
Halloween Kills, it's like this is not stiff competition exactly.
I've seen 10 of these movies.
Okay, I've
Wow.
also seen 10.
I gotta
So-
count.
You guys are all way better horror fans than I am.
And there are 15.
I'm not
I
good at
would-
keeping up with things that I like.
I would
I've seen
put-
11, but I think it's only because I saw Last Night in Soho and Noah hasn't.
I've heard great things about Night House.
I
So-
did not like Night House.
Ah.
All right. Well, but
I
we
heard
can all
terrible
that
things about
later.
Antebellum.
we can probably bet that Wrong Turn was good, though, right? I mean, such a good track
okay,
record
so-
on that
okay, so here's the thing, though.
series. I didn't
From
even know
what
they
I
were still
understand-
making Wrong Turn movies. What the fuck?
Yeah, from what I understand, it actually was shockingly fine.
Huh.
Yeah,
All right, good for them. I'm not
I
gonna
think
watch it, but like,
I'm gonna just put this out there. Movies like Wrong Turn exist in an era that doesn't work anymore. They need that shitty veneer of this movie is not good.
yeah,
And that's what helps. It's like the early Saw okay, fine. The Saw franchise also exists in that realm
for sure.
where it's among their peers, they either stand out or at least blend in and they don't fall behind, but it's only because everything was just kind of schlocky and
Mhm.
wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah,
And then Wrong Turn got really, really terrible.
Yeah.
So I just can't imagine making another Wrong Turn movie, but I heard it was not terrible. So
I do
Alright.
want to say, I want to give, none of us mentioned it, but I want to give a special shout out to the new Scream because it is a very,
Mhm.
very
Yeah.
solid movie.
Yeah,
I
I was
loved
about
it.
to mention how none of us pulled a franchise movie, and I'm kind of thrilled that even though there's a bunch of them on this list, there's 5. I forgot about Conjuring. There have been 6. I forgot
6.
about Candyman.
Yep.
There's been a lot, but the ones that haven't been franchise movies have been really, really good. So I
Mhm.
kind of appreciate that. But out of the franchise movies, Scream is easily the best one that's on there. Like I liked the new Candyman, but nothing's ever gonna beat the original for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Didn't even come close, actually.
yeah. Halloween Kills was like a fun enough watch, but it really
I
doesn't.
saw
Fun, but
it.
it doesn't have like substance.
No, it's not
It-
good
it
by
is-
any means. Anytime
is
Mike is
very
on
much a
screen, I
sequel.
like what's going on, but anytime anyone's talking,
Yeah.
it's just like, you fucking kidding me with this? This is terrible.
This is the same issue that like I remember telling some people when Endgame and Infinity War came out. I liked
yeah.
I liked Infinity War well enough as a like, hey, yeah, it's kind of what we're building up to.
yeah.
And I thought Endgame was really disappointing because
Yeah.
at the time I was like, I have other reasons to think it's disappointing now because it's just kind of boring.
Yeah, sure.
Hot
But-
takes, and we haven't even gotten
not
into
that
the
hot a
episode
take.
proper yet.
But like Halloween Kills is the same issue, is it does not stand apart from its movie that came before. Halloween
Mhm.
Kills is just Halloween 2018 Part 2. Together, they are one bloated and hugely long, decent movie.
Mhm.
Together, or separate though, the first one is, I would even say, great.
See, Halloween
And
Kills still has
Kills
the
is
like
fine.
it still has the problem where it's like the middle of a trilogy and it shows.
Yeah.
You know, like they
And
they
unlike
really
the Pirates
weren't
of the
working
Caribbean
toward any
movie,
kind
where
of
the
a
second one really
good,
know?
actually, yeah. Or
Yeah.
Shrek 2, perhaps, which was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Halloween Kills just kind of like doesn't move toward any kind of resolution at any moment whatsoever. It's just kind of happening the whole
The fact
time.
that the 3-hour movie takes place over like 5 or 6 in-world hours.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
hadn't even
does-
considered that.
Yeah, I think that's something that definitely doesn't help.
Not doing it any favors now, I don't think.
Nothing to say about Texas Chainsaw.
It would have been an okay Friday the 13th movie if it was in New Jersey instead of Texas and it was Jason instead of Leatherface.
Okay. Anyway,
But we got to get to.
Yeah, the
But
real
let's talk
point.
about the one that was on all of our lists, but we haven't talked about on the podcast yet. It's Black Phone. Welcome to Casual Obsession, the horror movie podcast where we talk about horror movies. This week we are talking about Black Phone from 2022. That's right, this year, June of 2022.
2 weeks ago,
2
in
weeks
fact.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're talking about a movie that's still in theaters. So that being said, we are going to spoil this movie. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead, listen to the ratings, get a handle on our opinion maybe, and then go watch it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
spoil something for you right now. You should watch this movie. That's it. Go watch it, please. Okay. I will say we lost our dong theme in the last movie in Saw. There were no dongs in Saw,
I
unfortunately.
would have
but
thought
we did.
Saw would have had dong.
You would have.
I
But
don't-
I'm sure a Saw movie has a dong, right?
I don't think they do.
No,
Really?
there's no
Goddamn.
nudity in Saw
Yes, there
until
is.
Saw 7.
Oh, okay.
It's really sad.
Is that the one where
But yeah.
there's the lady in the freezer?
In Saw 3,
Saw 3, yeah.
Okay. So the new
forgot about that.
theme, because we did not have any dongs in Saw, we did start a new theme, and that theme is lost actors from the show Lost. We had 2 in the last movie and 1 in this one. The actor who plays Daniel Faraday in Lost is in this one.
Jeremy Davies.
Whoa, wait,
Jeremy
hold on a
Davies.
second. There were 2 in the last episode? Oh, right, yeah, Michael Emerson. I
Saw,
can't
yeah,
believe I
there
forgot
was-
about Michael Emerson. Jesus.
What?
Oh my god. So
Of
you
all
were
the
thinking
ones, the
of
one that I
Miles and
forgot
not
about. Oh my god, what's wrong with me?
Okay, anyway, that's our new theme for these 2 movies, probably, and nothing else. So Black Phone is a movie directed by Scott Derrickson, starring Ethan Hawke and some other folks. It's based on a short story by Joe Hill, who you may not know as the son of Stephen King, because he really doesn't want you to know that.
And good
And
for
I
him.
really do respect that in the interviews I have seen so far where people talk about it, no one mentions that Joe is Steven's son.
Even though
Nice.
if you look at him, it's impossible to ignore it.
Oh my
They-
god, it's Stephen King
It's
with
like
a black
you
bowl
cloned
cut.
Stephen King.
He looks like
but-
Muppet Stephen King, just a little bit.
But I will say,
That's so mean.
this story, especially like I haven't read the short story, but this movie makes none of the mistakes that I hate Stephen King for making. So that's a point in its favor
Yeah.
already.
He doesn't hate Native Americans. That's a huge first
That
step.
is really
in this story. I don't know about the rest
I don't
of
know,
the stuff.
but yeah, in this story, we don't have that. We don't have any of the misogyny or the religion hate that Stephen King is famous for. We have a lot of stuff. Or incest. None of that too.
Yeah.
So thanks, Joe.
Appreciate it, Joe.
The Black Phone is a story about a kid named Finney, who is a little bit of a coward, and he has been going through some troubles at school. And amongst all of this, he also has to deal with the fact that there are a lot of kids disappearing around this town. Some of them are his friends, some of them are people he's run into maybe once or twice. All of them have been kidnapped by a person known to the public as the Grabber. We wouldn't have a story if what happens next didn't happen, so this is as far as I'll spoil, but Finney does get taken by the Grabber and put into a small basement room that is soundproofed and seems inescapable and is empty apart from a toilet and a phone on the wall.
That's our callback to Saw as well. Room empty, but for
Room
a toilet.
empty, but for toilet. There's no bathtub in this one.
Damn.
But yeah, there is a phone on the wall, and as Finney is trapped in this basement, he hears this phone, which is completely disconnected, start to ring. And that is where I'm going to stop our spoiler-free synopsis
Dun,
here.
dun, dun.
Dun dun dun.
Good
So
spoiler-free
yeah.
synopsis.
Let's talk about our critical reception. Noah, what you got for me?
Well, right now we got a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 65% on Metacritic. Give me 2 seconds to open up Letterboxd because I forgot it existed.
I feel like those are actually kind of low for
65%
my
is
personal enjoyment of
definitely
this movie,
low.
but-
And on Letterboxd, it is ringing in at 3.5 out of 5. A lot of people are loading this as a 4-star movie. It is the by far majority rating is 4-star and 3.5.
Okay.
I bet I can say what people didn't like about this movie, but I don't really agree with them. I would have to read it though. I did just read a review that cracks me up, but we'll save that for after spoilers.
All right.
Are we
Oh, do we want to do our personal ratings?
are we ready to get our personal ratings going here?
I'm going to give this a 9-star. In my opinion, this was a borderline perfect movie for me. I really, really liked it.
Yeah.
What about anybody else?
I'm gonna give it like 8.5. I don't know that I'm comfortable committing to a whole ass 9, only having watched it the one time 1 week ago as of now, but it's real good. It's real good.
You heard
Hey,
it here
1 week
first,
ago,
folks.
I was willing to commit. 10-star Noah was like, I'm going to rein it in a little bit so that I'm not disappointed in the future.
You heard it
And
here
I'm
first,
not.
folks. Jeff is afraid of commitment. Spread it
That's what
around
I'm
the
hearing too.
world.
This is completely off topic, but we were at a party recently and someone's mom came up to Jeff and started quizzing him about his commitment to his marriage.
That's-
Apropos of nothing,
Yeah.
completely unprompted.
Well,
So
well, she
weird.
was asking Becca first before asking me, so there
Yes.
is that. But yeah,
Yes.
it was out of nowhere.
It was both of their yeah.
She wants to get
Very
with you
funny to me.
or Becca.
Her
one or the
husband
other.
was right
She's-
there,
She's
so
seeing the weaknesses.
Her husband was right there yelling at her to stop because she was going to accidentally make them get divorced.
yeah, it was
That's
kind of
wild.
hilarious.
It was really funny. But yeah, got Jeff's rating. What about you, Emma?
I am giving this a solid, maybe a 9.5.
Woo.
I really, really, really liked this movie. Kind of what Noah was saying, for me, it's a near perfect movie. I would have added maybe a little more seasoning, and by seasoning, I mean potentially a little more scares.
Sure.
Or there's one thing in particular that I'm like, why didn't that ever come up? Because I was waiting for it to come up, but it didn't. But yeah,
Which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Yeah, I'll bring it up later. But it's such a well done movie. The child actors are incredible. Finn, who's the main character, the main boy, his sister is amazing, and I fucking love her.
She's fantastic.
Ethan Hawke playing the grabber and wearing this fucking mask, and his just portrayal and acting during all of this.
Oh my
There's
God,
some
yeah.
intensely like creepy shots of him wearing the mask while stuff is happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really, really good. It's very atmospheric. There's a lot of cool like hooks and things going on. But yeah, so big fan. Nina, what about you?
Yeah. So people are off topic, kind of, but it will play into my rating. People are comparing this movie to It, which I think is like, I understand why the setup is similar, yada yada yada. But the thing that I really enjoy about this movie, compared specifically to the newer It movies, is that the villain is so much more grounded. I was not once scared of Pennywise. Like,
Right, yeah.
even when they tried to do new things with him and make him look creepier, there's just something about the imagery that they are able to pull off with Ethan Hawke and this mask and just his like physical acting in this that are they evoked way more of a physical emotional
yeah.
reaction than borderline any horror movie has for me in a while. I wasn't scared so much as I was tense the whole time. Because Bitter, especially like knowing how Sinister ended, I know that this is not necessarily like a director or like this might not like cheap out on a terrifying ending that's like sad and stuff. So the whole time I was like, this might not end well, and I am scared. So yeah, this one's gonna be a 9.5 for me. I have not felt this much emotion. I've seen a couple horror movies in theaters over the past year, and I have not been this affected by one in a while. So
Yeah, the last
very big fan.
I haven't watched many horror films in theaters. I think it was this one. I watched Men, which was
I
hated it.
I'm sorry.
And I watched Cabin in the Woods way back when.
Oh wow.
And I think that's about it. I can't remember any others, but this one was definitely probably my favorite experience. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But what are some trigger warnings that we should give people before we send them run into the theaters to watch this so they can listen to our spoiler review?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot for this movie. Some of
Yeah.
them are pretty specific. The one I'm going to give right off the bat is there is a graphic depiction of child abuse,
Mhm.
There
physical
is.
child abuse.
Yep.
That is the big one. The acting in the scene is incredible. It's really impactful, but it is hard to watch. Um,
Actually, it just that specifically, little bit of trivia on that was an improvised scene
Oh my
part of it.
God.
Not that the actor decided I think it would be great if I beat this child.
Right.
That is not the improvised part. The child actor in one of the line repetition part, the repeat back to me 3 times was improvised by, I keep wanting to say Jonathan Davies, and that's not his name.
That's the guy
Jeremy
from Korn.
Davies.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. Jeremy Davies, he went off script when he said, repeat it back to me, and then he just kept saying that. But then Madeline McGraw, who played Gwen, was the one who improvised how she responded to that situation.
I loved that. I loved the
like-
way that her emotion changed
Yeah.
over the responses, and
Mhm.
like it was a really good scene. And I think it brought a lot to future interactions between those characters.
Yeah.
That was really important, especially with how the movie ended.
Yeah.
So
Her
yeah,
acting is
I'll-
absolutely incredible, by the way, especially in that
Yeah.
specific scene. To know that nobody
That
told
specific
her
scene,
to
yeah.
be that way in that scene, holy shit.
Mhm.
Whoa.
Yeah.
she killed. There are some scenes where I think when the kid swears, when her character swears, there were a couple scenes where I was like, yeah, it sounds like this kid is trying too hard to like swear. But like that's literally nothing compared to how good her acting is in
Yeah.
most of the other scenes. It doesn't even take away from it. But that's a big one. Ooh, let me think what else. There's some creepy implied like adult child like relationship stuff. There's no like outright sexual assault on screen or anything, but there's some creepy like dynamics there that I might be aware of going in. What else? Obviously child death, child endangerment.
Mhm.
Just a lot of violence between the children,
A lot of violence.
if that's a specific
Dog
kind of
does
thing.
a lot of violence between the children.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Dog
There is-
does not die.
Yeah,
Dog?
dogs.
Yep.
There's
Yeah.
not any dog death. There are 2 dogs, neither of them die.
Yeah. Which is nice.
It is really nice.
But yeah, there is a boatload of child violence
Oh,
and stuff
the
like that.
F slur is used early on.
Oh yeah, a good bit, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's set in the 80s. It's kids. There's some homophobic kids.
Yeah.
Fuck.
There.
Can't believe the kids said the fuck word.
Damn.
Yeah, the kid do be saying the fuck
Yeah, they
word,
just
though.
walk up to each other
Uh,
and they're like, "You are fuck," and
You are. Okay. I'm having a real hard time. Again, we saw this movie in theaters, so it's hard to remember anything specific. Alcoholism, that's a big one.
oh yeah,
There it is.
Yeah.
I knew
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
something I was forgetting. That was it. I think with that we're good. There's.
I mean, substance abuse in general tacked onto that as well.
Oh yeah, that's true. There is another character.
Max
with that.
does a
Oh, right.
lot of cocaine.
He
Max
does.
does a lot of
Oh,
cocaine in
Max.
this movie. I can't wait to
True.
talk about Max.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that with that, that's about it. If we miss something, I'm gonna give us a big ol'. Give you guys a big ol', take it with a grain of salt, and us a big ol' pass because we saw this like a week ago.
Honestly, I saw it so long ago. There's a part of me that doesn't even remember how scary it was.
Good.
Oh,
You
really?
know, I try so hard to make a goddamn transition, and then Nina's like, "Oh yes, that's a good transition. Good job on that transition."
Nice one
Noah.
there, Noah. That's a
Girl,
good
Why do you always
Great
do this
job,
to me?
great job.
I think it's hilarious.
I try so hard to make this show smoothly transition. You're like, "Yes, you did a good job transitioning just now." Why?
You can
Emma,
always-
what's the scary
She's
rating?
just trying to be
Fuck.
supportive.
I'm gonna do something new with the scary rating.
Okay.
On top of giving it a scary rating,
Yeah.
I'm also something I realized about horror movies recently is I don't know why I didn't make this like conscious connection until like just now, but horror is very obviously pointed at certain targets a lot of the time.
Right.
Like not all horror is general horror or general scary. Like we talked about women's trauma movies, and obviously those are going to hit women more than it's going to hit like men. So on top of saying a scary rating, I'm also going to say who I think the horror is going to be like targeted towards.
Ooh, I like that.
So I think for this movie, as we've talked about, if you've had abusive parents, specifically physically abusive parents, a lot of the horror themes are going to be hitting you pretty hard, as well as if you have alcoholism in your family or anything like that. Or if you were ever kidnapped, that's probably one of them.
Yeah.
As
I
far
don't wanna
as
be that guy, but maybe horror movies aren't for you in that case.
yeah,
Perhaps.
as far as like actual like shitting yourself scary, I don't think this is like a big shitting yourself scary movie. I would give it like a 3 out of 10. There are a couple like kind of things that pop out at you that
don't
that
watch it if you've already got
pretty
diarrhea,
scary.
probably. But like,
don't watch it
otherwise
if you
you're
have
alright.
diarrhea.
Otherwise, you will probably not shit yourself.
Yeah.
But overall, I feel like a lot of the horror comes kind of psychologically and just in the way that the movie is shot. So overall, I think I'd give it like a 4 or a 5, with special note that there are some scenes that are gonna be hard to watch if you've been abused. But yes,
Yeah.
that's my scary rating. Nina, do you want to give
thank
us a
you.
spoil summary?
I would love to. I want to say before we get into it, one of the most horror inducing and like tension inducing things in this movie is that you do not know at any point in time if the friggin' grabber could just walk into the fucking room and Finn will be doing shit, and I'm like, Finn, should you be doing that right now?
Yeah,
What if
absolutely.
That was the biggest source of stress for me, was that he had to be doing things, and there was no way of knowing if it was a good time to do it.
yeah, the tension is just fantastic.
It is. Okay, so I might need help with this, so I'm going to leave the floor open if people want to interrupt me and remind me of big things that I'm missing. Other than that, here we go. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of this movie. We open on a baseball match that our main character Finn is playing in. He is the pitcher, and he's doing a fantastic job. He's gotten 2 strikes on this kid, but the third one, unfortunately, ends up being a home run. As the kids are saying good game to each other, the kid who hit the home run, Bruce, tells Finn, "You almost had me there. Your arm is mint." To encourage the kid who he just freaking trounced in this game. But Finney does seem to take it really well. The two clearly think highly of each other. We get a fun little montage about how Bruce is kind of beloved by different people in town. Like, he's riding his bike and girls are like, "Hey, Bruce," and like he's just seems to be a smiley, cool kid. And then we see a van pull into shot, and we cut to a title sequence that's it's a fun little setup. The title sequence has a lot of Lost Kid posters, including one for Bruce, and we realized that was the last time that Bruce was out and about in the world. We pick up back again with Finney going to school with his sister. They say goodbye to their dad. They have to eat breakfast really quietly because their dad's a piece of shit. And
Nina, have you considered the poor man was just hungover?
I really don't care.
He did a great job of playing a really, really shitty dude.
I do not give a shit about this man's feelings or anything. So he yells at his kids. His kids start heading to school. As they get to school, they see that there's a fight on the front lawn between my favorite character, Robin, and some piece of shit bully. And Robin wrestles this kid to the ground and beats the shit out of him in front of everyone. As they go to class, Finn expresses that he's not sure that level of violence was necessary, and his sister's like, "Nah, man." Nah, man, Robin's great. Loved that. They go to classes, and we know that Bruce's sister goes to this school as well, and she's not doing so great. And Finn is also being followed by some bully kids. He ducks into the bathroom and is called the F slur and threatened, and then Robin walks in. And Robin's like, hey guys, leave my friend the fuck alone.
Robin's just like, let me clean the blood off of my knuckles because they're still bleeding. Damn, a good beating really does that to you. You know what I mean?
Robin sends the kids running with some threats and then tells Finn, hey dude, eventually you're gonna have to stand up for yourself, but I know you're capable of that. He asks Finn for some help with homework. The two characters have a lot of chemistry. I really enjoyed their relationship. It's really believable and I love them. Which makes what comes next super heartbreaking because that night, as everyone's returning home, Robin is our next victim of the grabber, unfortunately.
Which is done in, I thought it was done in really cool shots, because when Bruce got, you just saw a black van pulling around a corner in light slow-mo as the screen faded to black.
Yeah.
And for Robin, it was cutting through the back of a parking lot on the way home, and then he just sees this guy exiting a black van in front of him, slight slow-mo, fade to black. Not too much, no like, Jaws style music as the van creeps up behind him. It was just we all know what's happening. Kids are getting kidnapped, and we've all seen the preview. There's a weird dude grabbing kids.
Yeah.
And it was just nice, we didn't need to see him wrestle any kid into the van outside of Finney.
Yeah, seeing the black
cool.
van in the shot is a really good visual cue, just that you know what's about to happen anytime that you see it.
Mm-hmm.
Is really well done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It is really well done, especially because, like, again, this is set in, like, the 80s or late 70s, so it's, like, the whole, like, kids being outside, weird vans thing is, like, something that people became more aware of because of shit like what's represented in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So Robin's kidnapped.
Finney does hear about this and is obviously pretty friggin' broken up about it. The police are investigating these disappearances, and eventually they show up at the school because Finney's sister Gwen has been telling relatives, specifically Bruce's sister, that she has had like visions of these lost kids. The police show up and they're like, hey, what? She's like, oh yeah, sometimes I see things. And this drives the police to look further into it, going so far as to contact Finney and Gwen's dad, which does not go well. This leads to the scene we were talking about earlier, in which Finney hears screaming. I think he might have woken up to screaming, and he sees his dad, quote unquote, disciplining Gwen and yelling at her about the police coming to visit and why were they interested. And he tells Gwen to repeat after him that she does not see things or that her dreams are not real. And she repeats it back to him. She's clearly just doing it to get him to shut up. Yeah. So I am a little blurry on what happens next. I just know that Gwen has to be off doing a sleepover somewhere, and Finney walks home on his own. And as Finney is walking home, he runs into a guy with a van who has a like logo for a magic like performance, and he's like, oh, do you want to see a magic trick? And Finney lives in the 70s or the 80s, and he's like, yeah, sure. And the guy's like, yeah, cool. Sprays some kind of aerosol can, I'm not really clear on what it was, into Finney's mouth, shoves him in a van, using black balloons to make it look like he's just kind of wrestling the balloons into the van and not a full child, and then drives away with Finn in the back of his van. Finn wakes up in this man's basement, on a dirty mattress. It's the only thing in the room apart from the phone on the wall. There is another separate room down a narrow hallway with a toilet in it. That's going to be important as well.
It's because it's a toilet.
It's because it's a toilet.
Toilets are important.
Toilets are important. So I'm going to kind of gloss over a lot of what happens next. We learn that this man, the grabber, wears this mask. And the mask kind of coincides with either his emotions or his expectations. It changes. There are two halves of it: a top half with devil horns and a bottom half with a different expression. When he first runs in, like comes to check on Finney, the bottom half is blank, perhaps communicating that he doesn't know how to feel or what to expect from Finney yet. The two have a conversation about how he says he's not going to hurt Finney and all this stuff, and then he leaves. Over the next few days, we follow Gwenny as she tries to find some hint of Finn through praying, through sleeping, through trying to dream, which none of which starts like really works. And on the other hand, we see Finney in the basement, where he starts hearing this phone ringing. He picks up the phone, and after a bit, he does start to hear voices. The voices are from the kids who have died. Each one of them gives him a different hint as to something that can be done in this basement. One says there is a long wire that was hidden in the wall. One says that they started digging a hole through the tiles in the narrow hallway in front of the toilet. Another says that there is a freezer that can be accessed through the wall. Bunch of different stuff that they each tried to use to escape, even though none of them were really able to pull it off. So Finney's able to get the cord, dig a hole in the narrow hallway. He covers it with a rug to hide it when the grabber comes to check on him. He makes it to the freezer, but the freezer's locked and he's not able to get through. So he has all of these elements, but nothing to really do with them. He also figures out what the grabber's motivation is, which is still kind of ambiguous, but it seems that he really wants Finney to disobey him. He will leave the door unlocked sometimes, and in my favorite shots from the movie, he will sit on a chair in his kitchen, shirtless, holding a belt across his lap with the frowny face on his mask, just sitting still, waiting for Finney to come upstairs so that he has an excuse to beat the shit out of him. But because Finney's been warned by the other kids, he doesn't take the bait. He starts up the stairs a couple times, but thinks the better of it both times. Thank you, Finney. He also gets a bike lock combination to the door, which is kept locked on the inside by that bike lock. So he has a lot of pieces in place. As Gwen communicates with the police are doing their own thing. They stop at a house, which has inside a dog named Samson and a man named Max. Max is trying to solve the mystery. He's from out of town, but he's staying in his brother's house. He is so coked up, it's not even funny. This man is
so
having
good.
a hard time. He has figured out a kind of radius of where he thinks the grabber is, but he's not sure. The police are like, yeah, sure, Betty. Also, are you really just going to do coke out in the open? We're not going to arrest you, but are you that stupid? And then they leave. As things kind of come to a close, Gwenny is getting information on where this house is. She's seen flashes of the outside of the house, and a street number and other kinds of things. So she heads out with her dad after a pretty heart-wrenching conversation about their mother, who could also see things and was kind of driven to, oh, there's another content warning.
Oh, yeah.
Driven to suicide by it. She does get through to her
Maybe
dad
it's
enough
'cause
that
she didn't have a supportive husband.
Yeah, God, fucking dad. Anyway, he drives her around to try and find this house. They don't really come across anything. Eventually, everything kind of comes together when Max, the guy who has been staying in this house, we realize his brother is the grabber. He has been staying with his brother, and the kids that he's been looking for have been trapped in this basement the whole friggin' time. Max figures it out right as Finney has put together his escape. He comes down the stairs, opens the door, is like, oh my God, the kids have been down here this whole time. Let me tell you how I figured it out. And his brother comes up behind him and hits him in the head with an axe and kills him. He seems pretty remorseful about it. He's like, look what you made me do. You made me kill my brother. Ah, God damn it. This leads to the final kind of culmination of everything, where Finney's able to use all of the advice that he got from everyone to trip the grabber into the hole that he's dug, where he's put the grate he pulled off of the window. So the grabber breaks his leg, and he's able to start strangling the grabber with the cord of the black phone. And even though the phone is still disconnected, as he's choking the grabber out, it starts to ring. And I knew it was coming. I knew the line was coming. And I was like, this is so cheesy, but they better do it. And Finney says, it's for you, and holds it up to the grabber's ear. And the grabber hears the voices of all the kids that he's killed before he is finally strangled to death. Great scene. Loved it. 10 out of 10. Finney's able to use the steaks from the freezer to get past the dog Samson and get out of the house. And as he leaves, his sister, who had just been able to find the bodies in a house across the street, but not Finney, is sitting there to see him come out of the house, and the two hug. Their dad shows up and apologizes, but they markedly do not forgive him. And the movie ends as they are in the street recovering from all of this. That's it on the synopsis then.
Emma, I want to hear what it is that you wanted the movie to do that it didn't.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, great question. Thank you so much for asking it. Like you said, there was a lot of tension as Finn was going through and doing all these things like digging a tunnel or trying to open the one window that was in the room and all these other things. And there was always this tension of like, what if the fucking grabber walks in while he's doing this?
And he never does.
And he never does.
Yeah.
But one thing, and like Finn kind of hides everything that he's working on anyway, except the window had a grate that Finn like pulled off, and it kind of like came down, and then he tried to like get to the window but couldn't.
Mhm.
And so I kept expecting the grabber to see, where'd the fucking grate go? What are you doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
And it never did. He
Mhm.
never noticed, even though I feel like that's a pretty noticeable thing in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, but that's not like a huge thing. I also, there was some promotional material going around for this movie. One of which was something that was done on the Watcher channel. I don't know if you guys know the Watcher channel.
Not familiar. No.
Mm-mm.
Basically, if you've seen BuzzFeed Unsolved, Supernatural, and True Crime,
The Boys.
The Boys, they left BuzzFeed, and along with Stephen Lim, who did BuzzFeed's Worth It series, they started their own channel called Watcher. And they have a bunch of series going on, and it's really, really great. Highly recommend. But one of the series they do is called Are You Scared? Where they'll take random stories from the internet, and Ryan will read the stories to Shane, and they'll kind of like joke about them or talk about them as they're going through. And they did a live reading of one that was basically like a promotion for the Black Phone, where the sister ran into the grabber at the grocery store, and she recognized his eyes from like her vision. And it was like a really, really cool story. And I was expecting that to happen somewhere near the end of the movie. And that's maybe what like helped her find a connection and like find out like who he was and how to find him. But then that never happened. But it was like such a good kind of like
That is
well-written
cool.
scene that I really, really wanted it to happen. And then it didn't. And so I was like slightly disappointed. And that's no fault of the movie itself.
Sure.
But it was
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of like my hopes from this promotional material they did.
Yeah.
That
Maybe
would have
if
been
we-
really great.
Maybe if we get a director's cut.
No,
Yeah, that'd be
I
really
wouldn't want them
cool.
to add anything in too much like that, because that would be like, that would upset the entire end of the movie. It would be a total recut of the movie.
That might be
little bit.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, it would.
Um, that's fair.
So I messaged the chat earlier and I said I had mask trivia,
Yeah.
because I do have mask trivia.
I love that mask.
It's so good. It's so good. Hit us with that mask trivia now.
Okay, so
Whenever you're ready.
the YouTube, thank you. The YouTube channel Dead Meat interviewed the people who made the mask and Ethan Hawke and the director.
Nice.
You know who, Jeff? Do you know who made the mask?
The fact that you're asking
know.
me specifically makes me think I do know who made. Is it? Oh my god, I'm not gonna guess. Tell me.
Tom Savini.
Holy shit, that was what I was gonna guess. I was
Yep,
worried
Tom
that I would be
Savini
wrong.
and his crew.
Holy shit.
So Tom Savini
wonder it's
is
so
the guy
good.
who did. He did all the gore effects for Friday the 13th, like from the second one on, I think. or
he
maybe
did the
one, too.
first one and not the second.
That's it. Okay, so he's huge in the world of practical effects.
Also known for
he's
Night of the Living Dead and a series of other George Romero zombie movies. The Burning, which is the movie he did instead of
he's
Friday the 13th
got
Part
some
2.
insane makeup and like costuming abilities.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his team that that made this mask. So they made, I believe he said, 20 or more different masks
Whoa.
for the movie. Because even though in the movie the mask is removable in parts,
Yeah.
you know, the
Mhm.
top can come off and the bottom can come off separately. That is not the case in real life. Obviously, you can't really film like that too effectively.
Sure.
So they had the removable mask. They had a variety of damageable masks that, like, you know, they would get broken or something. They had a couple of copies of each other type. The blank face, the frowning face, and the smiling face, and then the top with no bottom, and vice versa, all across the board.
Yeah.
And then I think a couple of copies for like his like photo double.
Mhm.
But yeah, super neat stuff. They were talking about how the
Yeah.
design for the mask was supposed to be, the idea was that he found the mask somewhere and it was just very old. So they looked, so what they did was they're like, okay, this movie is set in the 80s. So we're going to go 100 years before the 80s. What was happening in the 1880s? What kind of masks were around then? So they looked at a bunch of like porcelain dolls and things like that and made a face based off of that.
Oh my god.
And that's why it has this really like really old quality, but also doesn't like look quite right kind of thing.
Yeah.
It looks like cool and
Yeah,
aged
no.
because that's what they were going for.
That's
they were
really
looking for an
cool.
old play mask.
I was thinking that it reminded me of the designs for the devil in Ready or Not, like the Leda
Yeah.
Moss like thing, which
Mm.
would have been like a very old design as well. It's got that kind of old timey devil look to it.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Right?
I love the mask so
Yeah,
much.
that's incredibly cool.
Yeah. I would recommend anyone interested about like the process behind that and everything, check out the interview Dead Meat has on their channel.
Hell yeah.
Super, super worth just like listening to, just to hear them talk about like the process of it. They didn't spend a single day on set. They made the stuff because of quarantine and everything. They got a cast of Ethan Hawke's face. They made the masks, and that was it.
Wow.
That's
and they
awesome.
at that time, I don't believe had yet seen the movie.
Wow.
Jeez.
So
That's
Nice.
so cool. It looks really good.
it's such a great mask.
fantastic.
I am such a slut for good character design. We know this already. The mask, the way that it like the way that the facial expressions are exaggerated,
Yeah.
the frowny face specifically. I love everything they did to combine Ethan Hawke's acting and the mask's design
Yeah.
for the shot of him sitting in that chair in the kitchen.
Yes.
Because again, he's not wearing a shirt. I really liked how it didn't feel like it felt like it was really raw because they didn't have Ethan Hawke like be super ripped or like be trying to like look
Yeah.
like super ripped in that scene
Yeah, he
in
just
any
looks
way.
like a
He's
regular
kind of
dude.
slumped there.
Yeah.
He just looks like a regular
It-
dude.
It felt like going back to abusive parents, specifically abusive
Yes.
fathers. It looked like a guy drunk with a dad bod sitting in a chair, disappointed in you.
100%.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. In the
And it
most
was
terrifying
really
way.
terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Like-
that's the first time we saw the frowning mask,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
it just
yeah.
flashed to the upstairs, and
yeah.
it was an image that radiated menace.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah.
The way my heart sank. Again, I haven't had that reaction to a like villain reveal in anything at any point. Especially not with anything in one of these like settings, because like right now, 80s horror, 80s nostalgia horror is really big. It has been since the first season of Stranger Things, and then it came out, And all of those movies have had this kind of like glossy sheen to them where I've never actually really been scared.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy the It movie. I really enjoy Stranger Things. None of them have made me feel the way that this movie felt. I've never felt actually worried for like characters in the way that I was here. I've never felt sad that a character was dead the way that I felt about like Robin and Bruce. The way that Robin and Bruce interact with Finney is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Because they both really respected and loved this guy, even from their brief interactions with him, and they really want him to live, and you can tell in the way that it's acted. All that Bruce can say through the phone is, "You almost had me, your arm is mint." And every time he says it with each different emotion, oh my god. It was just so good.
Oh, that's another thing. As the ghosts age in death, I suppose we'll say, they lose who they are.
Yeah.
So the longer the person has been dead, the less they remember about themselves. So at one point, Finney's like, "Oh, you were Bruce." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds right." But then there's another kid in there who, when he calls, he's like, "Your name was blank, the Paperboy." And he's like, "Don't call me that name. I'm just Paperboy." And he did not appreciate being reminded of who he was because that's not who he was anymore.
Yeah.
I loved
You know,
that that plot point so much.
Yeah, the longer they're away, the more they attach themselves to whatever they remembered most, which for what's his name was being the Paperboy.
I like the thought that he just had been watching Atlanta and really identified with the rapper Paperboy.
Oh my god.
And wanted to be called that because he was such a fan.
So the cast of this movie is very frustrating to me because some of them just have names. So Billy was the Paperboy. Okay. Bruce, I know who Bruce is. But then we have two other characters. We got Griffin and we got Vance.
Yeah.
And I don't remember.
I remember which one was which.
I don't remember Switchblade Vance being named Vance.
Hey.
I loved Vance
he
as a
was.
character.
Be fair to Vance.
I love 11th Hour.
That other guy pulled the
Vance.
Switchblade on him. He was
Okay,
just
but here's the
playing
thing. Vance had a
pinball.
very cool nickname. They had like this weird, like, what was it? Pinball something they called him.
Are
Like,
you
he had a
confusing
nickname.
I
people
don't
in the
remember
movie
that.
with me calling him the Pinball Wizard after the movie was over?
No.
Because
No, they had some sort of nickname
remember
as
that.
they were walking. No, because Gwen and Finney walking along in the beginning, she referred to Vance as something. And she's like, "What? You don't like when I call him that? Everyone calls him that." And he's like, "No, that's not my problem with you calling him that."
Wasn't that talking about the grabber and how
No.
he
Yeah.
didn't like how she called
No,
the guy
she
the
didn't like him
grabber?
talking about, or he didn't like her talking about the grabber because he's superstitious, and everyone's like, if you talk about the grabber, he's gonna grab
that's
you.
the character that he had.
That
the
was the
don't call him that
conversation.
thing. That was about the grabber.
Yeah. She said the grabber, he said don't call him that. And then she was like, everyone calls him that, and he's like,
Yeah, I
but
don't
just
remember
like
a
it.
pinball nickname.
No.
Whatever. I
I'm
remember,
sorry
but
to
I
ruin
can't
your
remember
point,
anything
Noah.
about it. Anyway,
Uh,
my point is that characters in this movie did not have only their first names, and
yeah.
they called them a variety of things, but in the cast, they just call them the character's official name, not the nickname that half of these characters had.
Right.
I want to go back to talking about the kids and how much they remembered, because Robin was obviously the most recent victim, so he remembered the most. He even remembered the advice that he had given Finn about you need to stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
And I loved the scene of him walking Finn through how to beat a bitch up.
Yeah.
It was so good. Again, I love their relationship so much.
Yeah,
So
it's
that
really
was a
good.
fun scene of Robin. I'm glad that it was Robin who was the most recent person so that he could have the most conversation with Finney, because I really was sad when he was dead.
Yeah.
The way he
Ooh.
talks to Finney is very like emotionally vulnerable.
Oh yeah, especially
well.
for I loved that, especially for a character who is the tough guy,
Yeah.
and also to say a little bit about Hispanic culture, he's also a Hispanic kid, and from stuff like Ender's Game, we see like this trope of like the violent Hispanic kid. and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, that's the one that you don't mess with. They're the one that's like fiery. But this Robin is like, he sticks up for his friends and he is very emotionally vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that that was there to kind of level things out, and that in return, Finney was emotionally vulnerable with him and really cared about him, and was like, when people mispronounced his name, when people didn't remember who he was or thought he was one way when he was really another, he'd always defend Robin, and I enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
Really quick, one thing that I really, really loved about all of the dead kids is how their different ideas of how to get out are all totally things that kids would come up with.
Oh yeah.
No, that's actually what I wanted to say also is each kid was like, this is what I did, and it did this, this, and this. But if I may,
Yeah.
none of those kids did any of the things that they advised that he did. We would have seen the damage, like that. The wire that was tucked underneath the trim on the wall would not have still been under the trim on the wall. The grabber would not have put that back. You know, there was not a fresh paved over section of the floor that
Yeah.
Bruce had dug through. Like all these things that they're like, yeah, I did this, and it was a lot of damage, and yeah, he had to pay a lot to get it fixed. None of that happened.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's kind of cool that a lot of this was clearly like some imagining that they did.
Yeah. And it
You know?
fits into the way that at the end it turns out that they've all just been giving him one master plan, one piece at a time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know what it was. He's been using the pieces to put together. And I didn't necessarily think that it was that they hadn't done it at all. It was just that they hadn't, their ideas of how to get out were so unrealistic, because Bruce was like, oh yeah, I tunneled, but I didn't know how to get up the other side. And it's like, kids don't realistically know how much work it's going to take to tunnel out of something. Like, I remember
Yeah.
digging at the beach and being like, I'm going to tunnel from here all the way under the ocean, and I'd get like 5 feet down and stop.
yeah.
And that felt like what had happened was like, yeah, he got like 5 feet down. There's a lot of loose dirt there, but he didn't even get to the point where he could possibly think of coming up again.
Yeah.
That was kind of the vibes that I got. Was it, again, it's just kids in their head being like, oh, how am I gonna get out of here on my own? I'm gonna like tough it through like a Hardy Boy or whatever. And instead we got a bunch of different pieces that came in handy in the specific scenario that Finn was in, and with his quick thinking he was able to use all of those pieces for something completely different. And I really liked that
Yeah.
because it was unpredictable. I was like, which one of these methods is he going to use? None of them.
Yeah,
And
you
all
really
of them.
don't see it coming the way that it all fits together.
Especially digging into the back of the freezer. That one, I'm like, okay.
Right.
That was the most useless, which is fitting because it came from Vance, who is also super useless. I
You
love
leave my
him.
boy alone.
I love Vance. Vance as a character is not introduced like the other kids who died are. He's introduced through one of the visions that Gwenny has, where we see him playing pinball in a convenience store and getting more and more violent. And he's this like 80s like big hair like metal kid, and he gets pissed. And
Stranger Things fans would think of him as an Eddie Munson
no,
type.
they wouldn't, because
but he's
Eddie's
angry.
a nice boy, and this
They're
guy
the same
is
character,
what
though.
people think Eddie is. He comes when he calls on the phone and Finney picks it up. Every other word this man says is "fuck."
Also,
It's
I
just
love how like
you fucking motherfuckers. I love
yeah,
him.
and after he's done like explaining everything to Finney like thanks him for helping, and he's just like, "What? This ain't about you. Fuck that guy."
It's like, shut the fuck up.
Like he doesn't
you
care
piece of
who
shit,
he's
and
helping
hangs
even.
up.
He just wants to get back at the guy who got him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love Vance. And again, his advice is completely useless and only helps to the stakes that happen to be in there get Samson, the big
Yeah.
beautiful black pit bull off of Finney's back at the end.
Something that realistically
good.
Vance could not have predicted.
No way. So let's talk about unless anyone else has anything to say really quick.
No, go for it.
Okay. So let's talk about siblings in this movie real quick.
Hell yeah.
Because we have a couple characters who have siblings. Obviously, we have Gwenny and Finn who have a great relationship. They tease each other, they encourage each other, they help each other through their relationship with their abusive dad.
And they beat the shit
Um,
out of each other's bullies as well.
they do beat the shit out of each other's bullies. I really enjoyed their relationship. I really enjoyed how you can see why each of them behaves the way they does based on how their dad treats them.
Mm.
Gwen has
Mhm.
responded to their dad's treatment by becoming harder and becoming a little more rebellious. She prays and digs into her religion and like that aspect of her visions and stuff. She asks Jesus for the visions and she swears at him when she doesn't get them, and I love her for that. At one point she's just like, "What the fuck, Jesus?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
That was the best. That was such a good scene.
But she's really responded kind of violently, whereas Finn has kind of withdrawn into himself, and you see that in the way that they talk to each other and the way that they kind of respond to each other and try to help each other out. I really loved that. I also love how Gwen went to Bruce's sister to provide some closure for her, because I can only imagine that internally she was like, well, if Finney disappeared, I would be fucking distraught. I need to
Mhm.
get this to Bruce's sister immediately. So I loved that. And then one of the other sibling relationships that I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on specifically is Max and the Grabber. Because the first we hear of Max is the Grabber talking to Finney, and he comes down, and I love the Grabber because he's very matter of fact and forthright. And
Oh,
he's
yeah.
just
Yeah.
like, he comes down, he's like, I gotta figure out what to do. Everything's kind of fucked up right now. I gotta make sure he doesn't hear you. This is just, it's all gone to shit. You gotta just bear with me here. And he's talking about his brother who came over to stay unexpectedly. And he clearly cares about Max to some extent, because he both doesn't want Max to find out because Max is looking for the kids. But there also does seem to be some love there, and perhaps some shared trauma, given how we've seen Gwen and Finney respond to trauma from their dad. I think we can see a mirroring of that in Max and the Grabber, but I wonder what you guys think.
I would definitely say that Max is 100% the deadbeat, never did anything with his life brother to the Grabber, who I gotta be honest, I
The
don't know what the
Grabber's done
Grabber
a bunch.
does.
Yeah, he grabs
Outs-
kids. No,
Yeah,
I mean, he kills kids.
Yes, Emma, he does. But
Super accomplished.
you get the
accomplished.
vibe because he do be having his clown party van full of black balloons and magic tricks. I do get the idea that maybe he does actually do that, but also like he's got some sort of job. He pays for his. He's got two
He's
houses.
got 2 houses.
2 houses.
Now, it was the 80s.
You know,
you could get houses a good bit cheaper back then. It might have been a 2-for-1 deal or some shit, but like,
Yeah, probably.
still, 2
The
houses.
realtor's like, I can't get rid of these houses. Please take this for free. But he definitely cares about his brother though, because he's like, yeah, he's here, and man, he just kind of hangs out and does cocaine, and that sure does suck. He doesn't know what to do with his life. And it was really cool to see the fact that when he does kill him later, he was very clearly distraught about that.
Yeah, he really
Plus,
didn't
it
wanna.
unveiled the worst mask look yet, which was all top, no bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked all bottom, no top, because I really liked Ethan Hawke's acting, and I liked how the bottom of the mask contradicted the eye acting, because he
Yeah.
was like puppy dog eyes on the verge of
Yeah,
tears
he had, like,
the
tears in
entire
his
scene
eyes
that
for that
he had
whole-
the bottom smiley mask on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was
But what I
really
will
wild.
say is all top, no bottom definitely made him look angrier than the angry mask.
The most evil, certainly.
It was, in my opinion, the time where he definitely looked the most like the bad guy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt really bad because they obviously, like you guys have said, they've had shared trauma, because the Grabber's
Mhm.
doing all of this because he had abusive parents, and this is his, I mean, he's not mentally healthy, so he's doing all of these things.
Clearly.
And
Mhm.
but because they had that shared trauma, the two brothers were obviously very close, and so Max lost his job and needed a place to kind of like rebuild. And so he came over to his brother's house, and then while he's there, he's hearing about all these child abductions, and he throws himself into trying to solve that. And when we first hear somebody else is in the house, the grabber kind of goes down and is talking to Finn about like being stressed, and Finn's like, well, is it the cops? If it's the cops, I'll scream and they'll come and help me. And he's like, shut up, kid. Like, this place is soundproof. Nothing's happening. And if something did happen, I would just hurt you a lot. And then we find out it's his brother. And then when the brother finally realizes that it's his brother, and he goes down to the basement and sees Finn, and just kind of like, it was a really sad moment of the brother kind of realizing what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so bad for him, because he wanted to be helpful, and he obviously cares about his brother a lot. And then to see the brother is the one that's been doing all this, and the disappointment on his face. And then he gets hit in the head with an axe by
Yeah.
the grabber.
I love the mutual disappointment, because it isn't surprise from Max. He does not seem shocked. He's just
yeah,
like, ah, shit.
He specifically says, like, I knew he was hiding something from me, but I never thought it would be something this bad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you watch him walk around upstairs and look at this door where it's clear that the grabber's like, hey, Max, stay the fuck out of my basement.
Yeah.
Why do you want me to stay the fuck out
The
of my basement?
idea
Okay.
of what was, not to be rude to the grabber, but what was the grabber's plan if Finney did come up the stairs?
Right.
Because how is he gonna keep Max from hearing that? Was he?
Right.
Did he think
I
he
think
was
he
just
only-
that coked up?
I think he only played that game when Max wasn't home.
Or when
Okay.
he was
Because-
insanely coked up.
Insanely coked up. Yeah, there had to be something going on there,
'Cause
because like, or
when-
maybe.
Because when Finn did go up the stairs because he heard the grabber was passed out from being tired.
Yeah.
And he got to the door and he opened the door, and then the dog started barking a bunch. Max didn't wake up. Or like Max
That's
wasn't
true.
there or
I
something.
got the impression Max was staying in the other house, the one that was across the street.
I don't think so. That
Okay.
house was abandoned.
It was
Was it?
empty,
Yeah.
empty when they got there.
Yeah, because there wasn't even a couch in front of the window,
No.
and he was definitely sleeping on that couch in front of
Oh,
the window.
Yeah.
That was my thought
My
too.
bad.
I am curious about that, so maybe we're missing something here.
Yeah.
The other thing is the line that he was an idiot, but he was my idiot. Shut up, grabber. You
Mhm.
shut the fuck up. I liked their relationship. We never got to see it on screen, but we get snippets from both sides where on one hand Max is like, yeah, I'm totally bothering my brother, but he's cool with it. He loves me. And on the other hand, you have the grabber being like, oh, my goddamn brother's in town. This is ruining everything for me, but he's in a bad spot. I don't want to turn him out.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Right. Well, and also just
love
I
them
love
so
the
much.
juxtaposition of our horrible, evil horror movie villain who has a kid locked in his basement having such an incredibly normal person problem. Like, that's
Yeah,
not
it is
something you
really good.
see in movies where it's like, well, yeah, I got the kid in my basement and I was gonna beat him with a belt if he tried to sneak out and all that. And I'm like, trying to feed him regularly and whatnot. But like, god damn it, my brother's sleeping on my couch and I don't know how to hide all this from him. Like,
Yeah.
It's
I love
so
that.
good. It's such a good plot
Like,
point,
yeah.
and I really love it because, like, yeah, you don't see that a lot in horror movies, and it's
No.
it adds such. And first of all, the ending wouldn't play out the way it did if Max hadn't been there.
certainly not.
Like, he's instrumental to the ending being able to play out the way that it did.
Yeah.
And also, it's just fun.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's just fun. It makes the whole movie a lot more dynamic. Without that kind of stress on the grabber. I feel like he would have been a less interesting character if he was confident and not constantly
Yeah.
considering the fact that his brother was upstairs.
The way
Oh,
that the
every time
grabber,
he's just like, yeah, I was gonna let you go. Maybe I don't know. I don't even know anymore.
yeah,
He's like,
like
I'm
the
so fucking tired.
the particular way that they decide to humanize the grabber without it never makes him seem less monstrous.
or even sympathetic. Like,
No,
I'm
not
never
remotely.
sympathetic to
No,
him.
and that was great.
But, like,
I
liked
really
that.
enjoyed
But
that.
it makes him so much more complicated because it's like, oh, this guy does still remember how to be a regular guy. It is what he does most of the time, is being a normal person. It's just that he's also got the kid in his basement. Like,
I love that we don't get to see him be a normal person.
Yes.
We hear that he's a normal person.
Yeah, we
but
never
we
see it
literally
happen, though.
never get to see that.
yeah.
So-
And I think that really helps.
And we get this kind of cool insight into his past too, where it's clear that he grew up in that house, you know? Because
Yeah.
he talks about that phone's never worked as long as I've been here.
Oh, yeah.
Or ever since I was a kid. And he's like, every now and then it rings, but it's just the static electricity. It's never been connected.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I love the implication that part of, again, because a parallel to Gwenny and Finney, a part of the implication that a part of why he has taken the trauma the way he has, and the part of the like way that both he and Max are, is potentially they also have the same sight that Gwenny and Finney have, because he heard the phone ringing when he was a kid,
Yeah.
But he ignored it.
but he
But-
ignored it. He can hear them, but he doesn't want to.
But they never really explore that, and that was good.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
want grabber back lore. We
No,
got it
better
I
that
now.
love
we
that.
didn't
You
get
can
it.
And we-
infer
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Good movie. This might be a 10, actually. The longer we talk about it, the more I'm like,
Honestly,
"No,
yeah,
you
I
know
think I'm
what?"
bumping my rating up to a 9.
Apart from
Like-
the where does Max sleep, which I don't care enough to like.
The couch.
but
where
how-
his coke is.
at the coke couch. I really love how the fucking police were just like, dude.
Maybe you should clean up before your brother gets back. Gesture at the 5 lines left over on the table. He's like, oh no.
And then immediately just goes to do another one. He's like, well, back to doing coke, I guess.
And back to the old snorting board.
I love his
Oh my
board that
God.
he has set up with like all the pictures and the yarn and the
I liked how I want to know from other people, like you guys specifically. When did you guys realize that the kid was in the basement? That like it was that house? Because I don't think I like the signs were all there. Like looking back, I feel like someone could have figured it out pretty early on. Like
yeah.
even in the scene where Max is first introduced.
Yes.
But like, did you guys? Where did you? I didn't figure out to the reveal.
I wasn't
when the reveal
100.
happened. I was like, oh shit.
I wasn't 100% sure, but when that scene ends and Max goes back to his cocaine, the way that the camera goes back to the basement to bring us back to Finney is it goes from Max and just pans straight down through the floor.
Right. I wasn't
Yeah.
100%
And I was
sure
like,
at that point.
are
and
they
then it's
saying
like,
he's in that house? Like until it was confirmed,
That's what I was
like,
thinking too.
He must be in that house then, right? Because like that's
because it's confirmed when Samson freaks the fuck out, right? Like that was
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
that was like it wasn't, oh god, I love it. It wasn't ever like a big, and it was part of the tension when we did figure it out. It wasn't like the reveal happened and now all the tension's gone, which happens so often in horror movies.
right.
It just added a new layer
Yeah,
to
nothing
it. Where it's
in
like,
this
oh, now we know
movie-
Max is in the house.
Nothing in this movie ever breaks the tension. It just keeps going and building.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So good. I really appreciate, even like up until the end, and I'm glad that it ended the way it did too. Because Emma and I were talking about this, and Jeff and I remember talked about this too. The way that it ends with the like dad coming up to them, because Emma had mentioned being like, oh, I thought it was going to end when the two hugged and that was just going to be it, but
yeah.
they carried on to have some closure of that thread with the dad, where he's been through a lot this movie. He thought both his kids were dead, and he comes up to them crying and is like, I'm sorry, I've changed or whatever. And they just look at each other, and he's like I love this shot because he's like on his knees in front of them, and it's this like with all the religious imagery, it's like this reversal of like a Christ thing where it's the
Yeah.
dad at the feet of the children begging for forgiveness. And I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so good.
And they don't say anything. There's not
Yeah,
even
yeah.
like a "you're never drinking again" or anything like that. They don't say anything. I
Mhm.
loved
I
that.
loved that so much. Oh, so good.
It's real good.
Real good movie.
Real good movie.
Yeah, cannot recommend it enough, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
From like, I don't know, from front to back, it was a really fun, tense movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
cannot overstate what Nina said about you always feel like Ethan Hawke's about to just walk into the scene.
Uh-huh.
Because you know Finney is out here working in the guy's house, and he could literally walk in at any moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And-
it's like we said, it's soundproof, so Finney can't call out, but he also can't hear when the grabber's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like if it's night outside, the grabber will turn on a light, but during the day, you have no idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It played on a lot of like fears that I like had as a kid of like I liked, again, you never know when he's coming back. I like that he left the door open and it feels like a trap, and the kids are all like, Finney, it's a trap. Don't-
But then Finney's still like, what if it's not
What
a
if I'm
trap?
built different though?
God, I just realized that it's also kind of like a parallel to when you grow up in a house with an abusive parent and you never know when they're gonna come back
Yes.
or
Mhm.
like when they're gonna be abusive / okay, and it's that constant tension.
Yeah, whether he's coming
Mhm.
in with
Ooh.
the smiling face
Oh, the
or the
scene where
frowning
he's standing in
face, and-
shadow.
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Uh-huh.
And he's that's a really good one too, because he's baiting him into lying to him by the way that he phrases the question. My mom, I didn't want to slander my parents during this, but I am going to slander my mom real
Oh,
quick.
no.
My mom used to do that shit where she'd be like, "Is there anything you want to tell me?" And she wouldn't know shit. She didn't know anything. She was baiting me into saying something so that she could get mad at me. She just thought that I had done something wrong.
What
So
the
she would
fuck?
open the floor so that I could out myself.
Oh my
And that
God.
happened constantly. If we would take too long walking the dogs, she'd be like, "What did you really do?" That kind of thing. Like my brother and I would go down like extra paths so that we could bitch about our mom for longer, but we never did anything like illegal.
Right.
So yeah,
Mhm.
no, that's definitely that feeling of like you are going to react very poorly no matter what I do. You've already made up your mind about me, and
Yeah.
you're just trying to get me to say something. Was in that scene where
Yeah.
like he had already put on the frowny face. He had already decided that Finn was going to lie to him, and he was just waiting for that so that he could say, "Oh, I was gonna let you go." No, you weren't.
Yeah. And he
At any
does
point.
this
It was
because
so good.
Finney has just been too damn well behaved this whole time. As the kids on the
Yeah.
phone keep telling him, "You're not playing the game." He wants you to play the game.
You're not playing
and
naughty
you're not,
boy.
he wants you to play naughty boy. He wants you to disobey so he can
Oh.
punish you. If you don't do that, it ruins his whole thing. You make it not fun for him anymore.
If you're well behaved, you make it not fun. I love it. You're making it better for me. It's getting deeper. I'm like, yeah, no, that is how that works.
This is one of
Nina's
those
score at
the
movies.
end
It's
of
like
this,
the more
11
you
out of
dig
10.
into it, there's just more there.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
It makes me wonder how he kills each kid, because when he comes down with the axe, it's clear that he doesn't usually kill them in a bloody, messy
I
manner.
believe he says
Because he's like, I don't usually do it like this,
Doesn't-
but I want it to really hurt for you.
in that scene, doesn't he say he usually uses a knife?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. But he clearly is not afraid to beat the shit out of these kids.
No.
So like, I don't know. He's a really good villain,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it is that doofy mask. The mask
It's the
conveys
mask.
so many emotions. We haven't seen a good like movie character, and I am blatantly stealing some talking points from Tom Savini right now.
Sure.
So watch the interview and get the better version of what I'm about to say.
Tom Savini's a
without my
good guy to
twists on it.
steal your talking points from, let's be real.
I would agree.
Big respect.
But he was talking about how he thinks the reason people latched onto the grabber so hard just from the previews from like ages ago is because we don't have as many characters in modern movies that are like that. We might have a character with a mask. You know, we got, I don't know, Babyface in the Happy Death Day, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like we get characters with masks, but we don't have a good like Jason level, Michael level character
Like a personality
that,
on
that
it. Yeah.
like
Not
Yeah.
to
And
say
that's where
that
Ethan
Tom
Hawke
Savini
makes the
stole
difference.
my point or anything, but I've said this on this podcast before, where it's like the character design has to all work together. It
Mhm.
can't just be you have a fun iconography in mind and you slap it onto an existing character. The character has to be built
Yeah.
with and around the design of it. And I think that they did that really well here.
a wonderful example, and we're gonna wrap up soon,
Right,
but
right.
Hush, the
Oh,
villain
yes.
in Hush,
Oh yes.
has 3 or 4 pages of backstory known only to Mike Flanagan, Kate Segal, and the guy that played the villain.
Oh shit, that was a Mike Flanagan.
There's a
that
bunch
movie?
of it was a
No
Mike Flanagan.
wonder.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
his
that
wife,
explains
so
everything.
It's his,
I know, right?
It's his
We'll
fucking
we'll
wife.
watch that someday for the podcast because
yeah.
it is
It's
one
a
of
good
my
movie.
favorite movies. But there's a bunch of little things like there's little tally marks on the crossbow and like implying how many people he's killed.
Yeah.
There's smaller tally marks that they're like, yeah, that's old people or kids because they don't count as a full tally mark. You know, that like everything that the guy does, he knows why he's doing it, and that's why the character doesn't feel too like goofy or over designed, you know? Like same thing for Ethan Hawke in Black Phone, where it's you got
We can read so much from
Yeah.
the way that the mask works and the way that the character
Yeah.
works without being told that that's how it works. All this stuff from the about us talking about like his expectations and his emotions,
Mhm.
that's not stated in the film. We are getting that from the way that the mask
Yeah.
is used as a prop.
Yeah.
his eyeballs and the big smiley face mask are what we're getting that from.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's wild.
Yeah,
So-
and once
I
it's
again,
so good.
once again, cannot be
Um,
overstated. Ethan Hawke is really what makes the difference with this villain because his physical and
Very much,
vocal
yeah.
acting is just so goddamn good. Oh my god,
It is so good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think it's a really good place to end on with the character design of the grabber
Yeah.
because again, that is everyone in this movie does great. The character relationships are great. Obviously, if any one of those things failed, this movie would not be as good as it is. But what got people to the theaters and what left me the most speechless coming away from it was the character design and Ethan Hawke's performance. So
Yeah.
definitely, if you liked that in the trailers, go watch the movie and get the full experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go watch the movie anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah. Go watch it again if you've already seen it. I'm probably going to go see it again.
honestly,
Yeah.
it's good enough for that. Yeah.
Heck yeah. All right, on that note, we have already talked about our next movie pick. Noah made a face that was like, we did, and then he made a face like, oh.
I thought you meant on podcast, and I'm like, we damn well did not.
No, we talked off recording about our next movie pick. Speaking of Ethan Hawke and Scott Derrickson, we're gonna do Sinister next. We're gonna do what we have lovingly termed Hawk Boy Summer, and we're gonna do a twofer on this director-actor combo here.
This
So,
one's
yeah.
for you, Graham.
Tune
Shout out
in
to
next
Graham.
time. Love you, Graham.
Well, and anybody else who
until
likes
then-
Sinister, but
That
But-
too,
yeah,
but mostly
but also
Graham.
Graham.
Until then.
If you want to
But yeah,
see Nina
the-
get distracted and annoyed by all of us, you can find them on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter.
We at her.
At Nina Wolverina. I do art. I post about my writing. I'm working on the second of 3 books. The first one's already out. It's called The Unwanted Prophet. You can find it in a link in my bio on Twitter. And you can also follow me at House Usher Rises, where I retweet horror art. And that's about it. Yeah.
And I'm Emma. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Emma Panada. You can also find that I'm working on a TTRPG called All the Witches. You can find information for that at allthewitches_ on Twitter. I also run the podcast Twitter at Casual Horror Pod, except I got a new phone and I had to relog into everything
Uh-oh.
for that. And the podcast Twitter I have not been able to log back into quite yet.
Uh-oh.
Because I forgot the password and I made a whole new email account for it. And
Emma!
I don't know that I know the password for that one.
Oh.
So I'm figuring it out. We'll get there. But-
Retrospectively, we should have realized that only one person having access to that Twitter account was a mistake.
I wondered why the account's been shockingly quiet recently.
Oh my god, stay tuned for that one, I guess.
Uh-oh.
We'll update you next time. Jeff,
Damn.
who are you?
You can find me, Jeff, on Twitter at Bubba Wubbadab, and in a couple of other places at the Hammer of Jeff. But why would you do that, really? I mostly only use Twitter anyway.
Nice. And Noah.
Jeff, if I may say, at Jeff on Twitter does not seem to be taken
What?
as an at.
Yeah, you
Bullshit.
could change your at and not have to be a joke from like 3 years ago anymore.
Well, that's
Just throwing it out there.
There's no way that just at Jeff isn't taken.
that just
No,
At
seems.
Jeff
Jeff,
on-
no, Jeff on Twitter.
Oh,
One
well,
word,
that's
Jeff on Twitter.
That's
Yeah.
dumb. I'm not doing that.
Oh, whatever. If you want to see me tweet some great ideas, like Jeff changing his name to Jeff on Twitter,
Sure.
you can follow me at Bubbadabad, BUBBADABAD.
Well, was at
If I
Noah
ever
on
stream
Twitter
again.
taken?
Shut the fuck up! At least I have an original
Get his
idea.
ass.
You ripped off my idea. We're watching Sinister next time. Watch Sinister in the meantime. It's a good movie. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.